day of disastrous results gambling over horse races, Philip Fry decides that it's time to retrieve an item from his past. When he was a boy, he found an impossible 7-leaf clover, which granted him extraordinary luck. After preserving it in laminate, the young Fry carried the clover with him wherever he went, and life was good. But his older brother, Yancey, who was always jealous of everything Fry had, including his more conventional name of Philip, repeatedly tried to steal the clover for himself. And so, Fry locked the clover in his safe in the basement, where it would remain in case he ever needed it one day. Fry leads Leela and Bender down into the subterranean ruins of old New York, where they make their way to what remains of the Fry household. The safe in the basement remains intact, but when Bender breaks it open, they find that the clover is gone. As they leave, defeated, they find a weathered old statue on a street corner depicting the spitting image of Yancey Fry with the lucky 7-leaf clover in his lapel. And to add insult to injury, the engraving states that the statue depicts Philip J. Fry. Fry is furious. After he was frozen, his brother must have stolen the clover, stolen his name, stolen his life. He only becomes more agitated when the professor finds an old documentary about this other Philip Fry, who made his life as an entrepreneur, philanthropist, and most of all, the first man to set foot on Mars, Fry's own childhood dream. Determined to get his 7-leaf clover back, Fry, Bender, and Leela head for the other Fry's grave to dig it up and retrieve the stolen item. But when they get there, they find an epitaph. Here lies Philip Fry, named for his uncle to carry on his spirit. Yancey Fry's life went on even after his little brother disappeared, and eventually he had a son of his own, whom he named Philip, in memory of the brother he still loved. Even separated by 1,000 years, the bond between siblings is a powerful one. Welcome to Space Podcast 3000, where the future is in the past.
So I guess we should start at the beginning here. I really like the opening credits gag, broadcast simultaneously 1 year into the future.
It could be.
Which, I mean, given how reruns tend to work, yeah.
Well, except it says broadcast simultaneously. And, I mean, in a physics sense, theoretically, that is... I guess, because, okay, humans are 4-dimensional beings. We exist in 4 dimensions simultaneously. Length, width, depth, and time. And we can perceive all of those first 3 at once, essentially, while only perceiving the 4th in a very limited capacity, 1 moment at a time. But a theoretical 5-dimensional being could perceive time the same way that we perceive space. That is, they could see all of it at once. So to them, yes, multiple broadcasts of this show at different points in time may as well be occurring simultaneously.
Physics! And then we got our opening with the horse races.
Horse races and minotaur races.
Centaur.
Yeah, this episode had a lot of really, really good jokes. I think this is one of the best episodes in the entire series, honestly. Because not only is the overall mood of the episode so good, but just the individual scenes, the individual jokes are phenomenal.
Yeah, actually, I think one of my favorite jokes in the episode is the professor at the horse races. Just after a quantum finish, he's like, "No fair, you changed the outcome by measuring it." And I love this because it works on multiple levels, because on one level, it's a reference to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, more specifically the observer effect, which states that the act of observing things at the quantum level disturbs the very systems that you're observing. So basically, measuring the location of electrons causes them to move, thus changing the outcome of the measurement. Quantum physics are extremely weird, but all this said, it is an especially good joke because it still works even if you don't know about the quantum physics aspect. And yes, I did just turn 2 very quick gags into completely separate physics lectures. This is what a lifetime of reading sci-fi has done to me.
Well, part of the other joke is it's almost like the people that are they want to go with their initial reaction, and then you analyze it further and realize they're wrong. So and it's like, that's no fair. You destroyed my worldview by analyzing it.
Yeah, but also the fact that sports referees do make erroneous calls sometimes. They're only human.
Right.
And then actually measuring the results via cameras and such can change the call.
But it's also a sci-fi series. Of course there's going to be jokes about physics.
Yeah. But, like, my point is, I love that joke because it works on multiple levels. It works on the one hand if you don't know about the quantum physics and just assume that it's, like, mad at the referee for changing the call based on actually measuring the thing, versus, it is the, uncertainty principle joke. So regardless of your level of familiarity with the science involved, you can still enjoy the joke. And I think that's perfect. That's really good.
Speaking of jokes that are really strange, horse Pepsi. Just the whole horse bar.
Yeah, and the sign said horse d'oeuvres, which, great pun.
Horse, yeah. Which is a great pun, because, like, it's not supposed to be pronounced that way. Hors d'oeuvres? Or...
Horse d'oeuvres. By horses, for horses, of horses.
Ew.
With horses. As horses. But like that was just an excuse to have as many horse puns as possible, and then the horse Pepsi, okay? Nay. Has anybody ever said that Pepsi is not okay when it's Coke or vice versa?
I mean, I don't care for either, particularly.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of cola, but I do know some people who really don't like one or the other. I mean, we've talked about the whole Coke and Pepsi thing before.
Yeah, it's very much a regional thing.
Yeah. So in this episode, we finally get to meet Fry's family, and his parents are kind of terrible in this episode.
We have seen them in a couple episodes before, but we do get some continuation of sort of their backstory. We saw a bit of the mother before, but now we get to see a bit more of what the dad was about, is just so worried about commies.
Yeah, this was sort of their proper introduction, I guess, and, also Fry's brother, Yancey, who, can I just point out, toddler Yancey just being like, I want to be named Philip, me Philip, me Philip. No child has ever talked like that. Why do people have such a hard time writing realistic dialogue for children?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes a child may call themselves in the third person because they're like, okay, they recognize, okay, they are this thing. They don't understand pronouns yet.
Well, like, my point is, with the kinds of grammatical mistakes that children will make, one of the main things is, like, mispronunciation or mistaking one word for another word. Sometimes, not knowing what the word means and using it incorrectly. But, like, no one ever uses the way kids actually talk at that age, which is often, like, overcorrective, where English has extremely inconsistent rules, where the way things work are never the same from thing to thing. And, you get, every rule has a billion words that are exceptions, and children will often overcorrect and do things in the very rigid, they learn the rule and they will apply it all the time, even if it wouldn't be correct in that situation.
Boxing.
And, like, that's the kind of, that's often how a child will talk. And so, like, if you're going to have a kid use poor grammar, that is both, one, more realistic, and two, way more entertaining to listen to than just, like, me, Philip.
Well, even if his grammar is incorrect, I can absolutely understand the idea of him wanting something because his younger brother has it.
That's not even what I'm talking about, but...
I understand. Like, even if his language isn't correct, his behavior is absolutely what someone like that would do.
Yeah, that very much is a toddler who just got a new sibling.
Oh, yeah.
Act like.
I have a younger brother, and we did have a bit of a sibling rivalry thing going up. I mean, we did get along fine, but, there were the occasional spats or conflicts, like what Fry and Yancey had.
And he doesn't really stop fighting with him until he's an adult, which pretty much, that's how it works. And we can presume that Fry was born in the early 80s, late 70s at the latest. Yancey, obviously a little bit before that, because, like, he was at least 20 before he was frozen.
Yeah, he was a college
as evidenced
dropout.
by that crayon drawing.
Yeah, like, we really do get some nice insight into Fry's upbringing in this episode, which is, nice to have. Actually, this is completely sidetracking, but I have written here in my notes just the words wig robot.
Yeah, why the hell is that thing there? It just appears and is gone.
I really like the design of it, like, it's clearly just there so that they can, return Fry to his normal character model after all his hair got burned off. But,
Which, I mean, Fry with his hair burned off looks a lot like Fry as a baby.
yeah, kinda.
He has that same little
Does.
poof of hair.
I guess just my point is the wig robot has a really nifty design. I like it. Also, Scruffy's back, and this time Fry surprisingly knows who he is.
He remembered! Yay!
Yay! Not a terrible person award. No, I'm just kidding. I'm also horrible at remembering people and names, especially.
Oh yeah, names are just the hardest thing ever.
But one thing that I noticed that stood out to me was in the ruins of old New York, in one shot, you can see the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
And 9/11 would happen less than a year after this aired.
Ooh.
Oh dear.
Well, I mean, less than a year after, they had no way of knowing, obviously.
Yeah, it's just, it stood out to me. And speaking of the ruins of old New York, did you see the news rack machine, what the newspaper headline said?
I noticed that it was there, but I couldn't read it before the scene moved on.
Mayor predicts victory over aliens.
Ah.
Probably a reference to the UFOs that destroyed the city in the background of the first episode, which...
Probably.
Really nice callback. Like, at this point in the show, we're starting to get a lot of really cool callbacks to previous episodes, and it's nice. I'm here for it.
The real question is how the cryotech lab survived while everything else didn't.
It might not have been exactly in New York.
Also, consider it a necessary weasel. If it didn't, we wouldn't have a story.
True. But it could still be active underground.
I'm sure. My point is sometimes, there are things that might not make perfect sense, but it's just gotta be that way because otherwise there's no story.
True.
Because you can see the city in the background of the cryo spot, so obviously it's not within the actual city proper.
Maybe not.
That's possible.
I mean, we don't really see its exact address, so no way of knowing. Although speaking of addresses, so the dance session scene with Fry and Yancey sort of competing in this, little hip-hop group, dance group on the street. So we see that this took place at West 71st Street, which is in Manhattan. And then Yancey chases Fry, and they get all the way home. And in the following scene, we see that Fry's family lived in Brooklyn, yeah?
Yeah.
So to get from West 71st Street in Manhattan to Brooklyn, that's more than 4 miles. That is a really long way to run. So assuming Fry and Yancey ran on foot all the way home, what the hell kind of shape were they in as kids? Holy crap.
I mean, humans have crazy endurance.
Well, they were breakdancing, so that does take a lot of endurance.
Yeah, but that is marathon runner endurance.
Maybe they ran on and off over the course of a few hours.
Yeah, but then, why didn't Yancey catch Fry? I get it's not something they were... I get it's not something they were probably thinking about when they were framing the episode, but still, it's just kind of funny.
Or maybe they took the subway.
Yeah, I mean, one gets on one and then the other one has to take the next one.
That's a possibility.
Or they're running through the subway.
That's another possibility.
The Ronco record vault. I have a few things to say about this. I mean, Ronco obviously was the Ron Popeil who was responsible for a lot of so many of these infomercial products. I was like, well, wait, there's more. He was that guy. But yeah, Ronco had all kinds of little products like that. So it's a bit far-fetched that there'd be something as specific as a record vault. But people were concerned about taking care of records and things. So you would need to keep them in sort of the climate controlled area and make sure they don't get too hot so they don't melt, which would actually happen with vinyl. But the fact that they're able to blow it open with Play-Doh, which is...
Is Play-Doh flammable?
Yeah, Yancey using Play-Doh like C4 is very funny.
Which, I mean, where would you come up with that? How would they... It's like, okay, how does he get into the record vault in a funny way? Because I mean, I could sort of see that having toys that have like a chemical compound that is not structured correctly. I mean, you look at something that never quite. You look at stuff that was recalled for whatever reason, like lawn darts or like those aqua dots. I remember when that happened a while ago. The aqua dots that kids would eat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then they changed the formulation and brought them back as Pixos, and it was literally the exact same ad, just with the name overdubbed.
Yeah, I remember that.
So yeah, you can sort of see that happening with this stuff that is discovered as essentially C4.
Well, I mean, the thing about Play-Doh is it's stable. It's not explosive or even
Oh, absolutely.
inflammable.
It's completely stable. There's no reason for it to be like this explosive thing. There's no reason it had to be Play-Doh. It could have been like a Silly Putty knockoff or something like that, or Gak or Floam or.
Well, yeah, like, okay, so Play-Doh is stable, but like the label on the thing said, I think Dodo.
Yeah, Dodo.
So it's possible Dodo is just C4 for children.
C4 for children, yay.
God, what a toy.
But yeah, the Ronco Record Vault has a single number combination, which it already seems funny, but I literally have a box that has a single number combination. And I've had this thing ever since I was in elementary school. Like my mom gave it to me as just like a thing to keep my money in, and it had a lock on it and had like a single number combination, and I had it for maybe a few days, and like I looked and she's like, okay, here, you keep the secret, you keep the combination secret and everything, and like my brother, because he's my older brother, he wants everything I have, so he's like, I bet I can guess the combination. And he's like, and so he's just thinking for a minute, and he just guesses 40. I look at my mom. I was like, "Why did you tell him?" And he's like, I didn't. He managed to guess it on the first one, and because I reacted that way, now he knew the combination to my fucking box.
Yeah, like honestly, single number combinations. It's not even a combination. It's just like way to defeat the purpose.
It's like, not only that, you wouldn't even need to know if you press the latch in and rotate it until it clicks and then it goes in.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't need to know the combination. You can literally just turn it once.
Just try enough times.
Like at that point, why even have a lock?
I don't know.
You just have to know that it's less. Having the lock on there is more. People will overguess it. They'll think that the combination is something more complicated than it actually is. It's like having your combination on your password be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's an easy combination to guess, but you would never assume that the password would be that dumb.
That's amazing. That's the exact combination I have on my luggage.
Exactly. Might want to change it now. If Fry shares the name of someone who's so famous, how come it hasn't been brought up until now?
Good question. Also, why in this episode did none of them like look up the dates that Philip Fry lived so that they could like quickly see, oh wait, the dates don't match up. It can't be your brother.
Fry was reacting with
Why didn't it mention it in the documentary?
Although I guess, it could be just again a necessary weasel. Like they do that, there's no story.
Well, it could be that, but it's also just Fry's reacting with anger and passion. He doesn't have time to think these things through. He just assumed that his older brother would have taken his name, because we see that it's not like Fry was making this stuff up. The older brother obviously does want everything his brother has.
That they never got time to reconcile as adults.
Yeah, that's really the tragic part of all this. Yeah, so, I've always been close with my younger brother, relatively speaking, but we definitely have a better relationship now than we did when we lived together. And I can say the same thing about my parents, honestly. Just because when in adulthood, you mellow out a bit, and it's just the kinds of petty bullshit that made you argue with your family as a kid, you realize that it was petty,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I do really like the line from the documentary about Philip Fry. Today, Fry spends most of his time in his grave. Because where else would he be? Dear God, I hope he's not a zombie.
Well, you could say, I like that joke because it's not specific. That's one of those jokes that it's not specific to Futurama. That's what I love. That's some of my favorite jokes in series. The jokes that really could work anywhere. It's a great one-liner that can be taken out of context, but it's from this show originally. Well, at least that's where we first. That's where it popularized, at least. Like, this dead person spends most of their time here, which is like, yeah, it's just the witty, just the how well written of a line that is. It's just so simple, but it works.
Yeah. And on the subject of that kind of simple joke, I really like Yancey borrowing their father's forest camo tuxedo. And then Yancey Sr. is just like, that tux got me through Nam in style. Just the ridiculousness of that statement.
You see, they're going to be looking for army guys.
Not a guy in a suit.
Well, I mean, I think the forest camo would be a bit of a giveaway regardless. It's also just extremely tacky.
Another joke that I really love in this is that orbiting cemetery, is that near here? It will be in a few hours.
And then the sign on the cemetery says that it's the closest you'll ever get to heaven.
Yeah, that was funny.
This is just us talking about how many great jokes there are in this episode. It is a really good episode. It is. There's so many great stuff, but it's also just the whole storyline and the way that it's played out, the character development and the insight into Fry's past. Yeah, I would honestly put this in the top 5 of the entire series.
Oh yeah, it is a really good episode. A lot of great jokes. You get the character development into Fry and the insight into his backstory. You got a really heartwarming ending. Like, what more could you ask from Futurama? Because I'm also an older sibling, and the ending to this episode always makes me cry. Every time.
Yeah, I was tearing up too.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go text my little brother because it's been a while since we talked.
Yeah, I should probably text my sister, see how she's doing.
I don't have a younger brother, so I'm just going to watch the next episode. Thank you for listening to Space Podcast 3000. Your 3 voices of the future are Nova Altman, Doug Hancox, and Eden Valerie. The theme music is Voxel Revolution by Kevin MacLeod. You can support the show and listen to new episodes a full week early at patreon.com/spacepod3k. Follow us on Twitter at spacepod3k. Be sure to join us next time as the Planet Express crew clean up an environmental disaster in the bird bot of Icecatraz.